As we've talked about frequently on these videos, the long green season over the summer and fall will group several weeks of thematically related readings from the Gospels. So earlier in the summer we had several weeks where we read healing narratives, where Jesus was showing grace to the world through the restoration of health. We're now in the middle of some what can be fairly challenging lessons, teachings from Jesus about faith, the nature of faith and what it means to be faithful. And this Sunday we have one that is actually more comforting than even challenging. And it's foreshadowed with the reading from Paul's letter to Timothy, where he talks about how the grace of Jesus Christ broke through and filled him with new life. And he goes on to say that Christ Jesus came to redeem all sinners. This idea that Christ Jesus chose us, that it was not a choice that we were making, that we respond to that choice in a life filled with grace and acknowledging that mercy and showing that love to the world. As I say, that foreshadows what we will then hear in the gospel, where Jesus talks about faith the size of a mustard seed is all you need to have a bountiful life. Or about how someone who loses a coin, the widow that loses the coin, will search tirelessly through her house until she finds it. That the shepherd who loses one out of 100 sheep will leave the 99 and go find the one that's lost. Again, these ideas of Christ and God seeking after us, choosing us. In between those two readings at the sequence, we will be singing a hymn that gets right to the heart of that. In your mercy, Lord, you called me, taught my sin-filled heart and mind, else this world had still enthralled me and to glory kept me blind. It's this whole idea that you chose me rather than a person making that choice. In our hymnal, this is a hymn that we sing from time to time. It's not one of the most familiar, and yet it's a very easy tune to sing. It's by the English Baroque composer William Boyce. And you'll hear that theme recurring throughout the service, again, about God's mercy. A little bit farther afield from that, but again, we always try to acknowledge all of what's going on in our lives, both the church year, but also what's going on outside the walls of the cathedral. And we would not fail to notice that the date for this coming Sunday is September 11th. And of course, our hearts are still a little bit tender with what our country has been through because of those awful events on September 11th of 2001. At the communion, the choir will be singing a piece that was written by a real treasured colleague of mine and a very gifted composer, Robert Lehman. We'll be actually singing several pieces by Rob Lehman this year, and that's going to kind of lead up to and sort of climax in the spring when we premiere a work that we commissioned from Rob, an extended anthem. So there will be more on that in future videos. But in the days following the September 11th attacks, Rob wrote this beautiful prayer for peace, and it uses anonymous words from the early 16th century. Jesu, for thy mercy endless, save thy people, and send us now thy peace. Jesu, for thy wounds 5, save from shedding human blood. Cease all great troubles of malice and strife, and of our neighbors send us tidings good. A very heartfelt and earnest prayer that Rob was giving out in music to those who had been affected by the tragedy. And he uses a very plaintive language in picturing this prayer. The choir will answer that right away, and we invite the congregation to join in on the communion hymn, where we'll sing There's a Wideness in God's Mercy. So, certainly bringing up some of those ideas of that prayer, but also hearkening back to the readings and the idea of God's mercy being with us richly. And in our hymnal, we have this beautiful tune by Calvin Hampton that really gets to the suppleness and the gentleness of that text. There's a wideness in God's mercy, like the wideness of the sea. So we hope that you will come and experience God's mercy and grace with us here at St. John's this Sunday, worshiping with us online or here downtown in Knoxville.